Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ismail Siragildin, and I'm very honored to be the co-chair of the Board of Trustees of the Nizami Enjavi International Center. Welcome to Shusha, a valued gem of the Azerbaijani heritage. And the NGIC is coming here for the third time. We had the privilege the first time around to have a very special tour guide in the person of President Hikmat Aliyev, who showed us around and explained the vision and the plans. A second time, we were in a tent. And now, Mr. Karimov points out, we are in a beautiful hall and things are improving all around. Just to remind you, we also have a very nice short video of that first visit to Shusha in 2021. Please show us the video.
Köksündə eksik bir zərrə mənə qanad verən, mənə qanad verən odlu ürəksən, adına özünə vətən deyirəm, çölünə düzünə vətən deyirəm, ey ay dadı bey, dadayım aney.
Memories. But it's wonderful to see the evolution that is taking place here. So we are coming here for the third time since this liberation from foreign occupation. But above and beyond the buildings of value for the cultural heritage of the country and the region, there is much to be said about the physical destruction and human tragedies that have occurred here. And it is indeed noteworthy that the government of Azerbaijan has budgeted no less than 6.5 billion manats for reconstruction. Reconstruction that is to be undertaken while promoting reconciliation and maintaining a focus on reintegration and inclusion. Reconstruction is also an occasion to think of the future and rebuild in an environmentally conscious fashion as we respect social equity and promote economic growth, as we develop green renewable energy and put the region and the nation on a sustainable development path. So we are here to discuss these and many other aspects that relate to this vast enterprise of reconstruction, where the legacy of the past will be brought to life for all the peoples who relate to this region, whatever their religious affiliation or their ethnic or cultural characteristics. This is a most noteworthy task, for historic lands have a special position in the nation's collective identity, and they help bind its people with what Lincoln called the mystic cords of memory. Some of these unique cultural characteristics will be the topic of a special panel later today, a panel where I intend to speak to the importance of cultural heritage and the vast array of approaches to conservation and adaptive reuse that we should see deployed here. But on the way here, I kept looking at the splendid Karabakh Mountains and thinking of Armenia and how it relates to Azerbaijan. And I can say, geography has made you neighbors. Necessity is now pushing you towards peace. History has made your people fellow citizens. Economics dictates your collaboration. Why try to go against these powerful forces when you have the opportunity to become partners with Azerbaijan in developing a common future for yourself and for the region? And if we cannot end all our differences right now, at least let us commit to peace and set aside the ideas of conflict and war. Let us, along with the banners of peace and reconstruction, lift up the banners of reconciliation and integration, and work together as we look to the practical issues of demining, reconstruction, integration, and inclusion. Differences of opinion can enrich debate as we ensure the right to speech and encourage the obligation to listen. Civility in discourse and rationality in argument will, I am sure, broaden the realms of our common understandings and allow us to build an inspiring vision for a common future from Karabakh to the South Caucasus region and beyond. And that, too, will be part of our reflections today. These and many other topics will be covered by our deliberations today, and we look forward to a rich day of fruitful and constructive discussions, and we thank our hosts, and I now turn the microphone to Mr. Emin Huseynov.
Thank you. Dear Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Shusha, the cultural capital of Azerbaijan. As Mr. Serageldian just mentioned, this is your third time visiting here, but I feel that your presence was always here because that we didn't say goodbye to each other last time. And it's a great honor to host this event in Shusha again, and I feel this becomes a very good tradition, and we will be very glad to welcome you here more and more times. During the past periods, there were many works carried out in the region and also in our city. We started from 2.5 years ago from scratches, from plannings, from project designs, and currently we are in a very heavy phase of implementation of projects and even already opening new infrastructure and social and cultural infrastructure objects after the reconstruction and rebuilding. We will talk about this later, of course, and in my welcoming speech I just want to once again to wish Nizami Ganjavi International Center a very fruitful and successful event, and wish you all a good stay in Shusha. Thank you.
And with that, then we proceed to our very first working session, and we turn over the microphone to Zlatko Lagumdzija, Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina, who will be the moderator of this session dealing with reconstruction, reconciliation, and integration. Microphone's yours.
Thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Mr. Karimov, for hosting us in here and such encouraging words that we heard from you last time when we were here, when you gave us excellent overview of what is going on with some of other people I seen here who I already remember as good old friends. And I'm very encouraged with your we say chehra in Bosnia and Herzegovina, with the way that your face looks like. You look enthusiastic, you look optimistic, you look like someone who knows what he's doing. So this is very encouraging, and results are more than evident. We all who were here for the third time, as far as I can recall, such a short period, are really encouraged what we see visibly but when I see you today, I'm even more optimistic about the future. Yesterday, we were having a very positive meeting with our dear friend Hikmet, and he was telling us about broader context of what's going on. And among other things, he was talking about how the things are expected to proceed in order actually to really do what is the topic of our today's discussion, how to proceed with reconstruction, with integration, reconciliation, a lot of small, concrete steps and moves that your leadership and under President Aliyev's guidance is taking over to make this integral part of Azerbaijan, not only in legal sense, but in substantial sense, in sense of the society, not only in sense of hardware, not in sense of software, not in sense of hardware, but in sense of lifeware that Azerbaijan is supposed to be and should be and is very proud of. And since I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, unfortunately, I have a lot of experiences in post-war reconstruction and attempts to do integration, and especially to do reconciliation, especially to integrate one fallen part of the country that was submitted to aggression of the neighboring country, to be part of one great nation which you are and which you are owed to us to show that you want to be and continue to be, because your success is our success, because we are members of the same family in a lot of ways. So, and it reminded me yesterday when he was talking about possible paths in overall settlement with your neighbors. Some people were talking about making comparison with Dayton. And of course, this is something which is no way road for Azerbaijan. And I just want to underline this as a beginning of this introduction to this panel. We can learn from our common and friendly experiences. We can draw the parallels, but we can also be very cautious when we draw parallels, and sometimes we need the parallel to see that there is no parallel in order to do not go that way. Dayton was, in my country, the peace accord that was intended to stop the war. And Susan Elliott knows much more about Dayton than myself. I'm the guinea pig who survived the experiment, and Susan was part of the team of scientists in Dayton, together with Secretary Christopher as part of his team, to put the Dayton foundations on. So the Dayton was good to stop the war, but that's it. That's it. If you want to do something after the war, instead of just waiting for the new war, then you have to proceed on and you have to go on. And I think you are in a very lucky situation that for you the war is behind. And you now have to go the way that you're already going. So, and I was comforting myself when Dayton Peace Accord was brought. I was against it. I was not happy about it. I thought it was unjust and a lot of other things. And then in one discussions like this with my friends, I was complaining and I was saying that Dayton brought us nothing else but the peace. And then a friend of mine told me, said, wait a second, don't repeat that again. Because Dayton brought you a peace. And then since I'm a member of a certain global family, and I admire very much people like Willy Brandt, former German Chancellor was, and then he was quoting Willy Brandt, saying that, don't forget, the old saying of Willy Brandt, peace is not everything, but without peace, nothing else is possible. And that's how I comfort myself with Dayton. But now we are entering, and I'm saying for this for my own country, and I think you are at that stage. Peace is here. Economy is not everything, but without economy, nothing else is sustainable. Education is not everything, but without education, nothing else is sustainable. Reconciliation is not everything, but without reconciliation, nothing else is sustainable in the future. And I can give you a few words that I entitle of our today's gathering. I'm very proud and happy that I'm sitting with friends in here in Shusha, witnessing myself literally, how far you went, encouraged with it, and positive about your future in here and your future in Azerbaijan, where Karabakh is substantially reconstructed, integrated, and reconciliated within Karabakh, within Azerbaijan, and within broader community. Having said so, I will be very happy to open and call my dear colleagues who are here as giving opening remarks. First, of course, I already mentioned, Susan, you in this introductory remarks, and there is no need to make any introductions around this table because we are slowly becoming one little, bigger, the biggest family of this type, or alliance of like-minded entities and people who share the same values and who actually share what the motto of Nizami Ganjavi Center is: dialogue, tolerance, I'd rather say respect, learning and understanding, and ultimately as a goal, shared society. Shared society here, shared society everywhere. Susan, the floor is yours, and you asked me what I would like you to talk about, and I said, Susan, I mean, there's no one who can tell you what you should talk about, but I mean, because you show so often that, I mean, when you talk what you want to talk, that's the best talk.
Well, thank you, Zlatko, and thank you for the invitation, Mr. Karimov, for being here today. I think I was here last June, and the one thing that has really struck me is how much that has changed in such a short period of time. This is a real accomplishment of the government of Azerbaijan and the leadership of President Aliyev. We were talking in some of our groups, and even in the United States, it's very difficult to reconstruct and change things as quickly as you have. So this is a real attestation to what the people and the government of Azerbaijan are trying to do to bring reconstruction to this area. But I think for the title of this panel, Reconstruction, Reconciliation, and Integration, I think are the two. Reconciliation and integration are extremely important parts of the agenda. Since 2020, Azerbaijan has completed many infrastructure projects, and these are very evident and very necessary to rebuild the economy here and to attract and get people who are displaced to be able to come back here. Whether they are from ethnically Armenian or they're from Azerbaijan, this is extremely important. But the one other thing that I think is probably just or more important that has changed since we were here last June is the process of peace. Because as Zlatko mentioned, you can have peace, which we do have here now, but you have to build on peace and build relationships among the countries who have been in conflict. And what I am really encouraged about is what has happened over the last few months to bring the governments of Azerbaijan and Armenia together to talk about how each side envisions the next 20 to 30 years here in Karabakh, because this is what is necessary to sustain the peace. As Zlatko mentioned, and in other conflict areas, I also have worked and lived in Northern Ireland. You can make a peace, but then the peace agreement that was made there 25 years ago needs to continue to be nurtured and to looked at. You stop a conflict, but then how do you continue to build and to grow on the peace agreement that was made? And I'm very encouraged because what I see, and I'm pleased that the US government has been part of this, but also countries of Europe and the European Union in bringing together the presidents and foreign ministers of the governments of both Armenia and Azerbaijan. Because in the end, we're all here from countries who are wanting to see peace and stability in this region, but the people of the two countries are the ones who need to come together and to decide what is the right peace, what is the right agreement for them. But what we can do is to be helpful. And, you know, the recent talks in Moldova, the upcoming talks in Brussels, the talks that were held just a month or so ago in Washington, I think are all extremely important for the future of not only Shusha, but the region. And in looking at, you know, how do we have reconciliation? How do people from both countries feel comfortable to come here and live together in peace and to build a new next 30 years in this area of peace and prosperity. And I do think we've seen that this is something that there is commitment. You know, maybe a year ago when we were here, it was hard for me to envision that there was commitment on both sides, because another thing you look at is when you have the end of a conflict, not, and we were talking about this as well, not looking at who's the winner, who's the loser. Because if you look at it that way, then it will be difficult to move forward. But what you want to look for is how can we have a shared society and come to agreement and bring people together. They don't always have to necessarily like one another, but to live together and to work together for the same goals and objectives are important. And so I want to thank, I'm very privileged to be part of Nizavi Ganjavi, because I think that the ideals and the principles of this organization are what are needed to bring the two sides together. So I'm very optimistic, not only seeing the investment here, but also in the ability to look at what will happen, that Yerevan and Baku are talking about how energy, transportation links, how we can revitalize this area. And I hope even with this renewed interest that this could also be, this is probably a very big hope, but the fact that, you know, Moscow is also involved in this, and if we look together and try to work toward something that the people of Armenia and Azerbaijan want, I think this can be a good model for the future. So I'm optimistic, and I'll leave it there, Zlatko. But anyway, thank you again. And it's very encouraging, and congratulations, Mr. Karimov, for all the work that's been done here and the work. I know you still have a lot left to do, but you're well on the way to creating a very prosperous society here. So thanks.
Thank you, Susan. I referred to yesterday's meeting to Hikmet, and when I was referring to Susan, I of course referred to Dayton, because that's too close to my heart and to my mind in every aspect of the meeting. But yesterday, I was quoting Volkan too many times for less than 24 hours, because in a meeting with Hikmet, he was making comparison with sacred cow. And in my region, there's also places where you can make that comparison. So the sacred cow concept is something which we have to think about, how to avoid that trap in which we are putting ourselves. No one else is pushing us there. With no further introduction, I'm really sharpening my pen to take notes, Volkan. Please, take the floor.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be in Shusha. after 30 years of occupation, at least for my country, which considers one nation, two states, Turkey and Azerbaijan, it was considered to be also our victory to get back Karabakh, which was occupied. Of course, now is the time for thinking about reconciliation, integration, energy, economy, environment, and equity. Of course, these must be translated into areas of opportunity. But my experience showed me that on the top of everything there is politics. And economy, energy, environment, equity is chapters under what politics decide. So if politics is successful, then you will be able to talk about the other chapters. If politics is not successful, then the others will become not relative. So also I learned from the politicians I served that especially I worked with the President Demirel, who said, in order to understand what can be done, we must first understand what cannot be done. So when you eliminate the things which cannot be done, you come to the small section where you work with the things which can be done. So here, I think what we are facing is, if we talk about Shusha, it will be not the whole of the story. So we must consider what Azerbaijan is doing, so that if Azerbaijan is doing well, then we can talk about Shusha, according to the plans, can become the cultural center of Karabakh as it was for many, many years. The problem here is, Zlatko mentioned the term I used with our meeting in Zlatko, with Hikmet. The sacred cow is a creation for Armenia. Karabakh is a sacred cow. So what sacred cow means, you die for the sacred cow, you suffer, but you don't eat it. So Karabakh is, according to the independence, has a different name. Independence Declaration of Armenia has a different name, and it is a kind of an identity for especially the Armenians living abroad. And if you remove this very important thing from their existence, then they don't have an identity. That is the fear which was imposed to all the Armenians living abroad. The problem with the Armenians living in Armenia would be less than the people living outside, in better terms, more rich, while the people here are suffering from being a landlocked country. Population is decreasing, resources are decreasing, and they still think about the sacred cow. So the important thing here is to find a solution to how to establish better relations with Armenia. But still, I think Armenia is trying some part of the game, which is to see what cannot be done, as I mentioned in my preliminary remarks. That is to use the world community, which is in favor of Armenia more than Azerbaijan, trying to put pressure on Azerbaijan to the Western communities in order to make Azerbaijan to give up from its rights and well-deserved rights. But this is not the case. This is over. It won't happen. So the reality is the occupied lands altogether according to the agreements signed after the Karabakh War, must be given back to Azerbaijan, to its real owner. And there is a very difficult map here, established during perhaps the Soviet Union time. So Azerbaijan is divided into two, Nakhchivan and Azerbaijan, and the connection between the two pieces must be secured. And that is why Zangezur corridor is not just a passage for trucks or passage for goods. It is the connection between the two parts which doesn't have a connection. And this is vital, and without this being solved, we cannot reach any agreement, any understanding in the region. And of course, this is one of the main pillars of the negotiations going on. I'm sure if Armenia comes back to reality and gives up the traditional support will solve our problem psychology, it might be much better if we're going to reach a solution. Of course, diplomacy, as Susan has mentioned, is going everywhere. But as a diplomat for 39 years and a politician for 12 years, I always thought diplomacy is extending the process more than it deserves. And you see some people becoming experts who know the issue more than anybody else, and they earn their lives from that crisis continuing. And when you find a solution, these people come out saying that, but remember, in 1974, August 20, this happened, so you can't do this. You find another solution, again these experts come, oh my God, you can't do this. 1980, September, this happened. So if you don't get rid of these experts who earn their lives from the crisis, continuation of the crisis, then you don't go nowhere. And diplomacy mainly is based on these experts all over the world. So to avoid the negative impact of these experts, I think, again, politics and real politics will be the panacea to overcome all these difficulties. Of course, Azerbaijan being strong here is important, because if Azerbaijan continues to have the structures it has now, railroads, natural gas pipelines, and its credibility very much risen in the world, in the United Nations, successfully having the chair of the non-aligned movement, and also having a say in all the difficulties in the region or in the world. This will be, I think, if this continues like that, it will be more possible to reach a solution. I think if we come to the main item of the subject of the panel, I think Azerbaijan illustrated a great example of reconstruction and reconciliation in Karabakh after the victory. Karabakh, as also you have seen while coming here, was devastated like Fuzuli or the villages are. It looks like Roman ancient sites. I mean, in very little number of years, all those beautiful cities were erased from the world, and now the task is to rebuild these cities like Shusha, but also to respect the main structure, the historical images, and what it was looking, it must look the same. You can't just construct buildings. And I think after seeing Shusha each year, you can see the development and how beautifully it is being reconstructed. But of course it needs time. 30 years of destruction cannot be overcome in a few years. But it's the correct direction, and the smart cities and villages based on social services, smart agriculture, alternative energy, housing and production, which are the main pillars of Azerbaijan's philosophy here, is, I think, the correct thing they are doing. The Turkey is with Azerbaijan all the time, and Turkish companies are the main investors and operators. As you have seen, Fuzuli Airport and Zangilan airports are the main projects that are completed, and a new airport in Laçın is also under consideration, which will be constructed also. This highway is very important. We will not have to drive the circles while coming here. It will take 3 hours from Baku to come here very pleasantly to reach Shusha next year or even before next year. So these are the remarks I wanted to share with you. But I think Nizami Gencevi International Center is one of the pillars in the Azerbaijani diplomacy. And this group I joined 2.5 years ago is not only a family, but a strong soft power which has connections everywhere in the world and has a credibility and respect from every parts of the world. So I think Nizam NGIC can also help Azerbaijan's future plans and to establish reconciliation and integration in the region as well. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Volkan. In our program, we have planned Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic, dear friend and member of the family, but you always have to be very careful when members of the family have some problem. Kolinda has some little technical medical problems. She stayed in Baku, and she gave us a short video for this occasion, and I would ask if it's possible to have Kolinda COVID way, I mean remote way.
Good morning. Croatia is among those countries in Europe and in the modern world who know best the price of reintegration, reconciliation, and reconstruction. After the aggression and occupation against Croatia and with the peaceful reintegration of Eastern Slavonia in 1998, Croatia suffered with multiple results from the war and aggression, which cannot just be described in terms of the physical damage that was inflicted upon Croatia, but also in terms of years of opportunities that were lost for Croatia and for our people. The years of the biggest investment in Central and Eastern Europe at the time, as well as the first programming from the European Union aimed at helping the countries in transition from undemocratic to democratic systems and from centrally planned to market economies. In addition to that, we also had to build our state structures, our administration. We had to build the armed forces. But also, most importantly, we had to develop civil society. We had to develop peace, good neighborly relations, and resolve open issues with our neighbors. The price that Croatia has paid and it still continues to pay from the aggression against Croatia in the 90s is also demining, one of the problems that Azerbaijan will also be facing for years to come. We are ready to share all of our experience with you, to assist you in any way that we can in the technical, social, and other processes of reintegration and rebuilding, and especially in demining. However, what I would like to underline today is that one of the keys to success of Croatia, which I believe is key to success of any peace process, is the involvement of the whole of society, of using the assistance from the international community, of working with the European Union and with other European and pan-European organizations. But also, what is of most importance is the will and the work of local government and the government of Azerbaijan in order to proceed with a successful reconciliation, reintegration, and rebuilding or reconstruction process. In that, the role of President Aliyev will be of crucial importance. And I believe that he has taken the right steps so far. And I hope and believe that he will proceed in such way that together with the government of Azerbaijan and all people of Azerbaijan, you will proceed towards peace, stability, and security, not just for Azerbaijan, but for the whole region as well. Thank you.
Now I'm calling our host and our dear friend. I hope this mic works good. Emin Huseynov, who is Special Representative of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan in liberated part of Karabakh, except Shusha, as it says in here, for everything except Shusha. So, I mean, the best view from Shusha to see the rest.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. I would like to thank you for this opportunity. First of all, thank the Nizami Gencevi International Center for organizing this event, which is becoming a tradition now, especially coming to Shusha is always deep emotions. And I would like to take this opportunity also to thank our dear colleague, Mr. Aydin Karimov, for putting together a magnificent event, as always he does. And, well, there are three words in the title of the conference or forum: reconstruction, reconciliation, and integration. We've had previous speakers already speaking a little bit about reconstruction, but mostly about reconciliation and integration. I would like to take some time to focus on reconstruction itself, because in my view, it's important to actually dig a little deeper into the process, because there are a lot of nuances there. It sounds easy, but as His Excellency Mr. Lagumdzija mentioned, it's not easy at all. There's quite uncharted waters, a lot of uncertainties, and I would like to actually emphasize the point that what Azerbaijan is doing now is setting a precedent, an important experience, a knowledge that can be shared with the rest of the world in actually tackling the reconstruction itself. So in that sense, of course, I would like to update you from what you've seen last year. Since you have a habit to visiting Shusha only, you don't have the chance to go to other liberated territories. But let's just use this opportunity to give you a bit of a glimpse of what's going on in other regions. So just quickly passing through this destruction of 30-year-long occupation, the governance framework of how we tackled or tackling this reconstruction process, key critical milestones, and then what are the targets ahead. And then I will talk about, next slide please. So this is basically the general picture that we are familiar with. This is how we found Karabakh after liberation. The three important points is the complete herbicide. 8 cities have been completely wiped out. Complete ecocide, but 50,000 hectares of forests have been chopped down.
and total ethnic and cultural cleansing. And then most of our cultural monuments have been demolished or desecrated. And it's not only about mosques I'm talking about. We have some churches, Albanian churches, Russian Orthodox churches, that have been desecrated or demolished. Yeah, it's just basically the picture. But the governance is important. How you tackle the reconstruction process, such a complicated, sophisticated process. So of course we have to take key principles of best practices into account. We knew that we had to do thorough planning. We knew that it takes a lot of effective coordination among different multifaceted process of reconstruction. So the governance framework that was put together, that His Excellency, Mr. President, is in direct daily control of the reconstruction process. For that, he established coordination headquarters, which is comprised of C1 level heads of agencies. All the ministers, all the committee heads, all the agency heads, they're all there, policymakers in a sense, setting some targets, putting ahead important tasks. But then, some of them are very aggregated tasks and, we need to find solutions. So we have established interagency center under the coordination headquarters, which is comprised of 11 working groups. Those are thematic working groups, which are comprised of expert level people from different ministries. So, for example, we have a working group on energy issues. We have a working group on transport issues. We have a working group on demining issues. We have a working group on environmental issues. And of course, one of the very important working groups is on repatriation of formerly internally displaced persons into back into their homes. So all of these people, experts, they're trying to find specific solutions to the policies set by the center. But then when it comes to implementation of these solutions, suppose there's a policy, there's a solution, but then someone needs to implement it, and there was a gap in that area. That's why Mr. President has instituted this institution called the Office of Special Representative. There are 4 of us, 3 of us are here. Mr. Karimov is a special representative for Shusha, Mr. Vaidajiev, special representative for Zengilan, Gubadli, and Jabral in Eastern Zengezur. And there's our colleague who didn't make it here, recently appointed, the special representative in Lachen, Mr. Masim Mamadov, and myself, the special representative for Karabakh, the liberated territories of Karabakh Economic Region. And our job is to coordinate the implementation of all these tasks. And not only coordinate, but also to give a feedback to the center. Because some of the things that are decided on may not be technically implementable or doable, or there are some factors that the center cannot see. You have to be on the ground physically to be able to get things done. And that framework has been working pretty well so far. And of course, we've had some strategic documents guiding us, like the 2030 national priorities. We have 5 key national priorities until 2030. One of them is great return. And that's why our objective is to make sure we have specific roadmap from now until that time. And the first phase of that program is the state program called the First State Program on Great Return that goes up to 26, and that has a very specific action plan, kind of roadmap that really, elaborates on what needs to be done, when, and where, and how, of course. And we are now guided by that. So let's just go into some of the milestones. So the first stage is general and master plans. We have developed master plans for almost all liberated territories. Then based on that master plans, we know what will be reconstructed and restored first, the sequencing. Therefore, based on that sequencing, we started the demining. Demining is important because without demining, you cannot pave the ways, you cannot lay out the basic infrastructure. Then comes the construction and development of social and economic infrastructure, the restoring the cities, and finally, of course, the great return. So it may seem that these are done in separate phases, no, but it's all happening at the same time in different places at different pace. So next slide, please. These are some of the master plans in major cities: Agdam, Fizuli, Hadrut, and Sugovshan. Next slide, please. So this is information about demining. So far, about 30% of Agdam has been demined. In Fizuli, it's about 28%. In other areas of Karabakh Economic Region, much less. In total, Karabakh Economic Region, 17.8%. For just for your understanding, better understanding, Karabakh economic, liberated territories are about the size of Lebanon, but the Karabakh Economic Region is about the half of it. Now some territories of Karabakh Economic Region are under Russian peacekeepers' control, but the parts that are under our control is about 6,000 square kilometers. That's a huge area, and then demining is just so complicated challenge that it takes so much time. Then we've started laying out basic infrastructure. So we have now like 10 highways, it's total lengths of 500 kilometers, 2 railways, and 1 international airport. You've seen the Fizuli airport, of course, we talked so much about it. We have some hydroelectric power stations, power substations, 5 water reservoirs, and communication infrastructure. Let's go to the next slide, please, and some pictures from the latest reconstruction efforts. And social infrastructure, 6 schools and 1 kindergarten, 2 settlement and 32 villages and non-residential complexes are being planned. One of the village has already been completed. This is one of the 3 settlements in the liberated territories. As you know, the first settlement is in Zengilan. My colleague will talk about it. The second village that was completed, the first phase, and we had 20 families already repatriated there. It's in Talish village and Tartar. And the third settlement was the city of Lachin. Very recently, another 20 families have been resettled there. Next slide, please. And some pictures from also Talish, as you can see, and some perspective projects that we have, the cultural and social infrastructure. I'll show you a video after this presentation, so I don't want to focus too much on the pictures. So let's continue, please. So jobs, of course, one of the most important factor of sustainability and the general happiness, of course, is that people have jobs. And it's not enough to build houses and, resettle people. People respond to jobs, and they need to have good, fulfilling jobs that can help them to realize their self-potential. We have opportunities for that. We believe that by 2030 we can generate about 150,000 jobs. For that we have Agdam Industrial Park, which is a place for those investors who would like to set up some productive activity, some, say, plants, factories. We have already 19 residents in the Agdam Industrial Park. 6 of them have started building their plants. There are different types of plants. Plants for production of roof tops, production of construction materials, production of carpets, textile, some food processing plants that are basically labor intensive, because when we make the decision whom to grant the status of resident, we of course take into account that important factor. Agriculture is of course a traditional, our comparative advantage. Mining itself, we believe it will take many decades for us to demine the whole area. There was some independent estimation that it will take about 50 years and about $30 billion to demine all the liberated territories. So I think it will, be one of the important job providers in the region for the foreseeable future. Of course, government jobs and tourism, fantastic nature in the liberated territories. And we really count on the small, medium enterprises. And for that, we have good opportunities. Environment in the liberated territories, business environment, has been even more facilitated by the recent decree of the president. As of January 1st of this year, the whole liberated territories are a sort of free economic zone. They're all exempt of government taxes, customs duties, all kinds of concessions and benefits are granted. So the vision is to, until 2040, we have this reconstruction is going to proceed. And we're in the first phase. The estimated data for the first phase is that 2 downtown areas of Agdam and Fizuli will be restored. We have 3 tourism destinations that will be developed. That's Hadrut, Tug, and Sugovshan. 32 villages will be restored, and land reform, of course, one of the most important policy issues. And we expect about 66,000 former IDPs, which is about 16,000 families. The half of the overall target of 34.5 thousand families for the whole liberated territories. Half of it, 16,000 families, will be resettled in the Karabakh Economic Region. So that's about it, and I would like to show you a short video just to visualize the progress happening in the region. Thank you very much.
for such an impressive introductory remarks, especially the grand finale with Mr. Huseynov, who really made excellent presentation. I'm looking for that presentation to get printed to all of us. It would be good if you can circulate it later on. I mean, because I think that that presentation itself is so informative and we can use it a lot in different occasions. At least I'm talking about myself, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one. And of course, this video just wraps up everything where we are. I know that now it is going to be very challenging to take the floor after such impressive introductory presentations. So, Rosen, I know you're not looking at me, but that's the reason. I know you are not looking at me because you know I'm going to call you to break the ice. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and dear friends, excellencies, especially all the young people in the room. We're so excited to be with you today. All the local representatives, the special envoys. You know, after looking at the video, it's a very emotional moment to all of us. It's historic, what we see today. We're bringing that energy of reconciliation, of sense of what you do, of a long-term strategy, of peacemaking, in the real term, back home to all of our countries. And that reminds me, probably you don't know, but today, I was also very emotional about 60 years ago, a very special moment of human history, a great peacemaker, just on the very same day, and that's JFK, the President of the United States. He had a speech, and with his speech, in a very difficult moment, the Cuban crisis, a great confrontation, very big drama, nuclear weapons around, he made it very clear. It was a speech about peace. How in a very difficult moment of history, you can make peace, not just peace, but sustainable peace. How and what it needs for political leadership to guarantee such a sustainable peace. JFK was saying something extremely historic. He was saying, you never negotiate out of fear, but you never fear to negotiate. And we can learn so much today because that's what you do here. You're really giving an example to the world, because peace is not possible without human rights. And you're giving a hope and a rights to everyone, no matter of religion, no matter of identity. And I'm sure that Armenians in this region will be treated as well as everybody else, and you will set up an example for the peace that is really happening in front of our eyes. JFK was saying that peace is not possible if you push your enemy to the corner so that he keeps his nuclear weapons and he might even use them. So peace is possible when you negotiate. And yesterday we've been briefed by His Excellency Hikmet Hajiyev about very, very, very deep and on the point negotiations between the two sides, which is extremely important. The other countries will help. The wisdom of people like Ismail Seragiodino, Volkan, and many others in this room, the American leadership, the Russian leadership, they might help, but without direct negotiations, eyes in eyes between the two states, is not going to work. And you do that. We know about this. It's very important. If you look at the approach between Azerbaijan and Armenia, I was shocked yesterday that actually the Armenians are trying to buy side, take it from somewhere else. One day the President Macron is calling. We were just a week ago with President Macron the whole day, with Mr. Hikmet Hajiyev at the Bratislava GlobSec Forum, on the first row. And President Macron was having a very passionate speech. But when you sometimes use your leadership, like France, for example, but in a way that both parties don't really feel comfortable, don't believe that the approach is honest and right, you're not contributing to a sustainable peace, negotiations, and development. That is why our wish would be really to have you building here a lot. And as people who build highways, railways, buildings for people, you know very well that in order to be very strong, to be sustainable what you build, not just the buildings, the highways, but the peace, has to have very strong foundations. And you're building the foundations today of peace. And I was really extremely impressed that you started your presentation, Mr. Huseynov, with master plans, with long-term strategy, which I have to say, if you ask 90% of the Western countries, do they have 2030 strategy? Do they integrate all the instruments so that you could have results? Do you have, for example, for the SDGs, which is a great, great, great plan for the planet and for humanity, do all of the countries have a very concrete, for example, 3 years plan, as you set up here in front of us? Who's responsible, when, what, how? That they don't. So we're here to thank you, to learn from you, to spread the example of what you do. You have a mission for the world, and you're setting an example how you can build up strong foundations for peace, for modernization. That will help all of you and help all of us give an example to the planet. We thank you, we're with you, and please, that video especially, send it to our mails because it was very, very exciting. Myself, yesterday, 100 kilometers, I watched on the left, on the right, there was not a single building left undestroyed. 100 kilometers of destroyed buildings, destroyed human lives, destroyed future and perspectives. And then we see the change. We see the future coming in. So giving hope, you're giving an example. We are with you and we support you. Your mission is very tough, but historic. Continue that way. Thank you.
Now, I see, Rosen, you called for volunteers, and we have Anna as our next speaker. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to follow on what Rosen was saying, because we all came here in November 2021, and as I was sharing with you, I think in our panel in Baku, to me, was not just emotional, but was very scary as well, because all the way to this road that President Rosen was mentioning, looking at the right, at the left, you could see that the nature was kind and was tough and was resisting, because I remember you still saw some flowers among those very destroyed buildings, which weren't just destroyed buildings, were destroyed lives. And I remember that my impression was that it was a ghost town or a ghost area. And then we met here and we had the best guided tour ever, President Aliyev, when he was taking us graciously around and was spending time with us and explaining not just the vision, what he's going to do with you and with Azerbaijan people, you know, to really bring life to this area, beautiful area. I remember he was kindly taking us to the plateau, you know, showing and saying, look, you know, this will be one of the jewels in terms of the mountain resorts as well. But to really see the determination to actually bring life to this beautiful, very beautiful area. And what is teaching us? Is teaching us that you have a vision, you have a good planning, a very strategic planning, and then you have the determination to implement it. And I'm very, very confident that, for many years to come, you kindly, Mr. Karimov, you were mentioning that, it's becoming a habit of us, a very good habit, to come back here. Well, on a personal note, I very much look forward to come here when you will have the resettlement. I will very much welcome. Well, I'll bring a good Romanian wine as well, and we can have it with the Moldovan one and Azerbaijani wine as well, and to celebrate. But taking that, leaving that joke aside, when President Aliyev was showing us around, what actually stuck with me, among other things, was when we went in front of the building here, when we saw the statues. And to me, it's still, I can't explain how and why somebody would shoot at statues. I mean, that's hate, and it's beyond hate. And then how President Aliyev hunted one of the statues that was to be sold on the black market, if I recall it correctly, and he actually bought it back, stored it, and he said, in one day I will put it back to where it belongs, to Shusha. So again, that's it's showing, and that I'm not going to go on and on, because for us it's incredibly emotional, for all of us. When I received this beautiful flower, I was given the flower and said, look, this is the flower of Shusha, because it is true, I fell in love with Shusha, because when we were, and then the first vice president took us around as well, and was showing us how he's going to restore the cultural aspect, not just the schools, but likewise the mosques, the church that is preserved, and so on and so forth. So to me, I take back home a lot of lessons every time. It is amazing to see work in progress, to see the changes from one year to another, very substantive changes. And I'm asking you, but if I recall correctly, all of those efforts of reconstructing, including from the financial point of view, is supported 99% by Azerbaijan. And that's something that needs to be told to the world, because you know what? This is something that you are rebuilding an area that was destroyed by an awful war, and yet you are rebuilding it with your own money and your own efforts. And that's another sign, or a very good lesson, of the determination to actually bring life to this beautiful area. And as I said, I mean, I never doubted that this is not going to be a success story, because I saw it in your president's eyes when he was taking us around and he was saying exactly that quote. It said, we will reconstruct, rebuild Karabakh, Shusha, and we will set it as an example to the world, including from the energy point of view. We will be talking later on the energy, that this will be an example, including where you will have the main source of the energy from the renewable, and have this jewel to be allowed to shine. So I'm very much respectful and grateful for all your efforts. It's not going to be easy. And it is not easy, but I'm very, very much looking forward to really come back here and see the progress and take the lessons back, not just back home, but showing and telling the world the story, this beautiful story of this area that will be alive again, from a ghost town to really rebuild this, including this infrastructure. In such a short period of time, it's a great example. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Joseph Muscat, Prime Minister of Malta, and then Ivo Josipovic. Of course, Susan, on the end, you will be able to reflect. I mean, all three of you, Emin, yourself, and Kolinda will not reflect, but I mean, she's with us anyway. So, Joseph.
Thank you, Zlatko. I must join my colleagues in saying how impressed I am at the presentations we got, especially from Mr. Huseynov. I must say I'm not a big fan of 10-year plans, contrary to Rosen. My experience on 10-year plans is that most of the time they're used as excuses by people to put unrealistic targets, which then their successors will need to justify why they were not achieved. This is not happening here. And rather than planning, which I think a series of bureaucrats can put a plan together, the real challenge is implementation. And that is what I am seeing here, what I don't see in many, many other places. And I do believe, so my 2 points are, I do believe, as most of other colleagues, and this is a criticism I would put to you and to us, and a burden on us, to get out the message. I don't believe there is enough awareness of the great achievements you're doing here. That's somewhat of a well-kept secret when it shouldn't be a secret. And I think it is part of our remit to reach out and give out that message, but it falls, I would believe, also on you, as special representatives, the 4 of you, to have as part of your remit the reaching out factor and not only the implementation factor. The second point is more of a question. Until you reach the point on explaining to us the strategy on economic development, the lingering thought at the back of my mind was, okay, you are doing a great infrastructural job, which is hampered by the demining exercise, but you're basically building a ghost town, somewhere where people will find it difficult to come back because they have now their new lives in Baku or elsewhere. And really and truly, people come where there is activity, where there is economic activity. So I would like you to expand a bit more on the plans of our economic activity. I believe that there will be incentives on that. And I believe that there is an opportunity here to make a gap analysis on what, mostly in your region, does not exist, and make this area a sort of special economic zone of Azerbaijan, which can really flourish. I see no advantages in war and in reconstruction. The only advantage that I see right now here is, generally speaking, that while in most of our cities and countries, which we're lucky enough not to be, those of us who are lucky enough not to be war-torn, most of the time we do retrofitting. So we see what's the state of the art, see what the situation is, and then we strive to retrofit our infrastructure. In your case, you don't need to do that. So I believe that this is where your unique selling proposition might be in the future, where you should not use the technology of the present or of the past, but you should be a testing base for the future in all areas, without, the fear of committing a mistake. There are no mistakes here. And yes, you said in the initial presentation that you're basing yourself on international best practice. I submit that there are very little best practices, and you might be setting a best practice here. And this might be something that, while you are, as Anna said, you're financing it yourself, this can be a case study for the future for many war-torn areas. So well done once again.
Thank you, Joseph. Ivo Josipovic, another view from Croatia and from
Thank you.
board of NGIC.
So I have to tell you that I'm really impressed by what was done by President Aliyev and the government here to overcome consequences of the war. But definitely I think everyone should be aware that it's long-term procedure. Some aspects will last for decades, not because you're not capable to make it. Some processes need time. And we passed, our history is unfortunately connected to the war, and we had this problem of reconciliation and integration in Croatia. And I think it's fair not to share with you just positive sides of processes in Croatia, but also some problems we had and we have still in our country. Firstly, our country was divided in two areas or three areas concerning this reconciliation. There was part of Croatia, important part of Croatia, where we didn't need any reconciliation because people, Croats and Serbs, lived together with not significant consequences of the war. But there were two areas very affected by the war. It's Eastern Slavonia. Mrs. Grabar-Kitarovic told a little bit about this peaceful reintegration. So for me, that's the most valuable experience because this occupied territory was reintegrated without a single bullet. And that's very important. Secondly, there was part of central Croatia, Dalmatia, North Dalmatia, in which consequences of the war were very serious. All villages were destroyed, almost all, contributed both sides, let's be honest on it. And the biggest problem is that after the war, it was almost empty from the people. No Croats, no Serbs, because Croats went from this area at the beginning of the war, and Serbs left at the end of the war. And of course, our government really did the best to attach people back, Croats and Serbs, but unsuccessfully, mostly unsuccessfully, because it was too late. Many families from both sides went to Zagreb or to Belgrade or to Niš or to, I don't know, Split or Zadar in very well surrounding, having their kids at local universities, having jobs. And I always ask myself how one can imagine that someone from Zagreb and Belgrade will come, probably some people will know what I'm speaking about, Islam Grčki or Islam Latinski in central Croatia where you cannot find anything to make your living. So mostly people used these buildings, their property as summer houses. The sea is very near and they tend to come during the summer to be there in their houses, renovated houses, but they don't live permanently there. And it's, I think, the biggest problem. Probably we failed to make some factories, some economy, some cultural life or whatever that will make this, this area attractive for living, for both Croats and Serbs, definitely. So, this is, let's say, one not good experience from our reintegration and reconciliation. The second one is in some areas when we didn't have real consequences of the war in that manner. We have problem that, yes, people are living peacefully, but not together, side by side. We have schools for little kids, Serbs for Croats, football clubs for Croats, football clubs for Kurds, pubs divided. So it stayed divided society, unfortunately. And what's the biggest paradox? In many cases, it's motivated by political elites from both sides because they need some kind of low-level conflict, frozen conflict, to be to present themselves as someone who is defending our national interest. Keeping always a certain level of tensions and misusing this for political benefits of both sides. So that should be somehow avoided if possible in the other cases, including your country. I don't know what will happen. I think that you are on the good track, very good track. And what we heard from President Aliyev a year ago, something like that, was very encouraging because definitely he was talking not about territory, but about people as well. That's very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdulaziz. Please, before we wrapping up, and I have one more speaker, and then I will call our introductory panelists to reflect. Okay, so Abdulaziz, please.
Thank you, Zlatko. First of all, I would like to express my highest appreciation of what we have seen a few minutes ago in the presentations of Mr. Karimov and Mr. Huseynov on the reconstruction of this region. I remember when we were here in November 2021, there were little things done here. The road was there, and the electricity and water and the hotel. But now we can see a big difference between November 21 and now. This is a tremendous and gigantic progress in reconstructing this territory, which deserves appreciation and respect. And I hope that this piece of information, which is well prepared, could be circulated and known at a larger scale, because many people in the world do not know what is going on in this particular part of Azerbaijan. To reconstruct a demolished area, a vast area like Karabakh, is not an easy job, especially in such a terrain, the mountainous region where work needs to be done in a very difficult and sophisticated manner. But thanks God, and with the guidance of the President, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, and the good people like Mr. Karimov and Mr. Huseynov and their colleagues, this has happened, and it is a reality. We are now looking at it and living in it. And I think this should be known through media, through the embassies of Azerbaijan, and through also Nizami Ganjavi Center, which is composed of high-ranking personalities from different countries. The theme of this session is reconstruction, reconciliation, and integration. This phase is reconstruction. We have to concentrate on reconstruction, because when we do the reconstruction, as we can see it right now, and I am very sure that in a very short period of time, maybe in 5 years' time, the whole region will be completely reconstructed and flourishing. So when the reconstruction is completed, I think it will create the atmosphere for reconciliation and integration. And this is what the government is concentrating on, and we have to support them. As far as I'm concerned, as an individual and as a member of the Nizami Ganjavi Center, I will do my best to disseminate this information with my friends, through my Twitter account, through my Facebook account, and all the means that I engage in. And I hope all of us will do that. We do not have to wait until tomorrow. We can start today. And I'm now doing it, putting pictures and sending some messages. And I hope if we do that, we participate in showing the world what is going in this region after a big occupation, long occupation, destructive and ugly occupation. Thank you very much.
Okay, Hedva, gentlemen gentleman was announced the last one, but definitely ladies have always privilege. Please, Hedva. Please, please, please take the floor.
I'm sorry, but I have really an experience here, so I would like to share it with all of you. First of all, I was amazed, and thank you so much for this presentation. And since 1 year we've been all together here, I saw really a difference. I was making a watercolor, and now when I wanted to do from the same place this watercolor, I see a difference, but I'm going to do it. I will talk about reconciliation. I will talk not about reconciliation, but I will talk the reconciliation of the land here. I think Shusha was the center of the culture of Azerbaijan. You all know about it. Last year, I was in an exhibition, I don't know if you have seen it, in the National Museum, and I saw the amazing art and the history of Shusha. All the artists that came from Shusha, the painters, musicians, it's something which is so important. I asked the Minister of Culture by that time to make a book, to make a catalog, and to make a proof that in this land, it was from always was a wonderful culture was expressed. I was asked last year, I have a program at UNESCO which is Art Camp. I'm bringing artists from different countries, especially from countries in conflict, and I was asked to issue this program here in Shusha. It was last year, we had the first art camp, young artists that came here, that were working together since 10 days, almost 10 days, and they were so much inspired by the land, by the environment. I can tell you that it is a very special place, Shusha. It's a place with inspired artists, musicians. You can see the sculptures outside, how important about the history of this place. And this program, we had an exhibition with the art in Baku afterwards. I came for the exhibition, and they were so happy. So this is something that we have to continue here in Shusha, because it's a very particular and a very special place. And we can deliver a message of peace from Shusha to see how we can rebuild the place, reconciliate, and bringing art and culture towards the world. This is something which can be a very important point for the future. Thank you. Just wanted to add the cultural point.
Thank you, Hedva. So before we wrap up and give the opportunity to our interactive speakers, I will just have one call in gentleman who showed how the gentlemen live in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well, because Adis Dejkovic is the one who gave you the floor, Hedva, because he was an LC. So two gentlemen from Bosnia. I mean, Adis is the gentleman who wrote a very impressive book about Karabakh. And he was witnessing Karabakh and very big friend of Azerbaijan, but he's currently the advisor, serves as advisor to a new president elected of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I would like him to take the floor to share some impressions that we were having over this morning with Filip Vujanovic and Boris, and we were talking about Mr. Kurtish, about his impressions about getting back in here again. Please, Adis.
So, Professor Lagumdzija, thank you very much for this opportunity and thank you very much for invitation. It's my pleasure to be again here in Karabakh, and first time I was here only several months after liberation of the Karabakh with the group of the journalists from Balkan countries. And I have visited many destroyed places and villages in Shusha, Agdam, Fuzuli, many others. It was totally destruction what I saw. And after that, I saw also here a huge will for reconciliation, for reconstruction and other. And that positive story of Karabakh inspired me to write a book about Karabakh. And my book, War and Peace in Karabakh, was based on my 4 TV reportages here. And I can say that there is a huge interest of the audience in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well as the other Balkan countries about Karabakh and what is happening here. And also for the new developments and updates. So thank you very much for the new information, and I will share it in Bosnia and Herzegovina and other Balkan countries. I'm really happy to be here again and to witness with the huge progress that has made in the last 2 years. Thank you very much.
So, Susan, please, could you take the floor and have some comments of our introductory speakers?
Just for a short final comment, first of all, I mean, thank you very much for your vision and for outlaying, and I would like to have you know, a copy of your presentation, because I think one of the probably most important things that I've heard in the discussion with Joseph and Abdulaziz and Anna and others is that getting the word out about what you're doing here, because there's a saying in the US, put your money where your mouth is. So if you're committed to peace and stability in the region, I think what Azerbaijan is doing is showing your true commitment, because you're willing to invest time, effort, and money into making this area of the world a peaceful and economically successful place for people from all ethnicities in the region to be welcomed. And I think that that in combination with, again, the peace process that we've seen started since the Reconstruction have started can be a win-win, because if you welcome bringing people back together and see it as an opportunity, this is extremely important. And we've been tweeting photos and giving information, but I think even in the US, because of the Armenian diaspora, I think it would be important for you to get this message out. Maybe you already have, but even to do more in Europe and around the world about what the Azerbaijan government is doing here to invest in the future of the stability of the region, because this is, as Joseph said, you are trailblazers, I think, in a post-conflict society in saying we are going to invest in our people and our country. So, and I welcome that, and I congratulate all of you. Thank you.